I don't consider myself to be contemptuous by any means, and I genuinely dislike the act of berating any piece of media as a whole. That being said, there's a whole lot of garbage anime this season, so I apologize for sounding a bit more cynical than usual. To dedicate all of your time and passion towards mastering a skill, only for that skill to be eclipsed by those who appear to have natural talent, is a demoralizing sensation that many of us know all too well. In the first episode alone, Hanebado encapsulates the wide range of emotions associated with the feeling of inferiority, not only through nuanced character acting, but through atmospheric cinematic techniques as well, such as dynamic lighting and complex framing. The episode's straightforward narrative was given a dramatic depth due to the implementation of these striking visual elements, phenomenal animation quality in particular. While there's no denying the exceedingly melodramatic tone of the anime, there was never a moment where it felt inappropriate or distracting. In fact, I think if it wasn't for the heightened sense of drama, I'd have a hard time taking an anime about badminton seriously. And sincerity is a quality that seems to suit the nature of Hanebado unexpectedly well. Hanebado never felt overtly anime, at least in comparison to something like Ping Pong Girls or Kuroko no Basket. The majority of the voice acting felt natural rather than cutesy. Certain characters, like the archetypal class president, quickly betrayed her assumed authoritative disposition and slipped into a more authentic, thirsty high school girl, lusting after the idol of the boys' tennis club. If Hanebado can manage to uphold the quality of its truly ambitious premiere, we may be in the presence of something more than just a phenomenal showcase of badminton animation. Island starts off with a time-traveling amnesiac waking up naked on a beach with an underage girl's face in his crotch. After being arrested, he quietly admits to the police officer that he's on a mission to commit murder, but his confession apparently goes unheard. He later sneaks away from the police and attempts to sexually assault the same girl from before, and I don't really care to remember what happens after that. If I felt like I needed to properly justify my distaste with Island's first episode, aside from it being a demonstration of visual novel tropes, I suppose I was particularly annoyed by the sheer abundance of illogical and incomprehensible reactions to nearly every occurrence, such as being completely dismissive towards someone who just tried to murder you, deeming a father-daughter argument as more important than a runaway pervert, or casually allowing said pervert to work for another underage girl. Unsurprisingly, an anime with Isekai in the title itself is derivative, to say the least. The first episode of Isekai Maou to Shoukan Shoujo no Dorei Majutsu was devoid of even a single unique idea. An otaku shut-in gets transported to a fantasy world, taking on the appearance of his overpowered MMO character, showcasing his unrivaled strength while trying to mask his social awkwardness. Thankfully, what it lacks in originality it makes up for in cute girls. The fan service, while somewhat violative for my taste, is both unabashedly gratuitous and aesthetically pleasing enough to thoroughly maintain my interest. 10 out of 10. The anime community describing Shichise no Subaru as Anohana meets Sword Art Online is honestly the most fitting summation of the series that I can think of. A group of elementary school kids feel responsible for the death of their white-haired friend, and are haunted by her ghost during their teenage years. The first half of the first episode was painfully, almost intentionally generic, in an effort to hide the emotional curveball, while the second half solidified the terribly melodramatic atmosphere. I've seen far better versions of this same story told before, and I don't need to watch it again in a discount SAO universe. Harukana Receive is no keijo, which is a bit disheartening, yet it promised anime booty and delivered. The contrast between the expected intensity of a sports anime and the leisurely pacing of a slice-of-life series made the first episode feel tonally convoluted. Simultaneously implementing two opposing genres gave me the impression that the anime was constantly lacking focus. The repetitive fluctuation between action and drama was so persistent that neither facet managed to achieve any substantial impact. Although the action and characters lacked depth because of this, it's perfectly likely that Harukana Receive will attain a better sense of tonal cohesion as the show goes on. And even if it doesn't, well, who cares? I'm into this. Chio-chan no Sugakuro was moderately entertaining, but the show's dull art direction paired with a slew of jokes that hinged upon the relatability of socially awkward situations made it feel overall uninspired. Nothing about the anime's presentation felt notable other than a handful of lumpily drawn women. Rather than ever eliciting a genuine laugh, there were only brief moments that managed to make me exhale through my nose at most. On the other hand, Asobi Asobase had me laughing out loud at the mere realization that I was watching a comedy. After sitting through a cheerful opening sequence depicting three cute girls wearing pure white dresses while singing in a field of flowers, I thought I was in for your typical slice-of-life anime. But that delicate atmosphere conveyed in the intro was immediately ripped apart to reveal impudent humor. The first gag goes out of its way to distort our perception of these adorable girls by giving them disgustingly over-exaggerated facial expressions. And while Asobi Asobase may excel at visual humor, the show doesn't rely on it. Rather than using a funny face as the joke itself, characters' expressions emphasize the core of a joke. The vice principal tasting water to check if it's pee is conceptually funny. The punchline involving his disappointment in finding out that it's not pee is even more hilarious. But the expression of his sheer benevolence in regards to his actions is what makes this joke memorable. This is unwatchable. Anime that thrive off their gimmick constantly compromise retaining audience interest. Series like Sakamoto-san or Takagi-san that pride themselves on having a unique premise often sacrifice extensive characterization or a linear narrative for attention. Hataraku Saibou disguises miniature biology lessons as conflicts experienced by adorably personified cells of the human body. However, while the anime seems to be achieving its purpose of presenting adequately educational information in an easily digestible format, it makes me question the lasting appeal of a show where the highlight is simply seeing a new character design rather than learning about who they are. Episode 1 of Joshiochi-san Dropkick disregards context with reckless abandon and throws viewers into the middle of a manga adaptation, implying that the series is all about the what rather than the why. Who needs a structured narrative when you can just watch a goth lolly break a snake demon's spine with a crowbar? After all, characterization is apparently irrelevant when everyone's an archetype. In this strange fusion of Dokuro-chan and Moromi-san, masochistic tsunderes and sadistic yanderes attempt to murder each other because it's funny, I guess? And anime fans will watch anything with a cast of cute monster girls. I understand that I'm being hypercritical over a perfectly watchable series. It's just that as a proponent of beautifully bizarre anime like Dead Leaves or Fooly Cooly, I can't help but think that a show like Dropkick is debasing the implementation of weird by making a surprisingly formulaic show seem chaotic through the act of removing pertinent background information. In contrast, Planet With deliberately excludes context for the sake of generating intrigue. From large purple cats to amorphous alien invaders, the world of Planet With forces the audience to submissively accept these odd occurrences as natural, much like our protagonist who is, you guessed it, suffering from amnesia. Tropes aside, the first episode of the series was relatively enjoyable. In fact, my biggest complaint, other than the unpleasant-looking CG robots, is simply that the anime feels a little too immature for my taste. Which is fine. All that means is that I may not be the target demographic, as is the case with many other anime this season. But while we're on the topic of sexy boy anime, let's talk about Banana Fish. As I watched the first episode, I found myself wanting to like the anime more than I actually did. Stories with gay or homoerotic undertones are so fetishized in anime that when one offers even a glimpse of authenticity, I want nothing more than for it to flourish. I began to think that this desire I have for Banana Fish to be good was clouding my judgment, that maybe it was only impressive in comparison to whatever the hell Phantom of the Twilight is. But after watching episode 2, I feel like I can put those concerns to rest. The narrative, although still niche, is far more elaborate than I would have ever expected. No. I was surprised to find that my distaste in this convoluted edgefest, known as Satsuriku no Tenshi, didn't fully set in until episode 2. I actually found the nondescript and overall vague nature of the anime to thoroughly instill a convincing atmosphere suited for a nightmarish dreamscape. A setting shrouded in ambiguity, housing characters with equally ambiguous motivations, appeared to be intentionally cryptic. Unfortunately, as soon as the story attempted to progress, it became apparent that my praise was ill-founded. I had mistaken bad writing for the beginnings of a mystery. Characters who I thought were manifestations of some sort of mental illness or fear were apparently actual characters. Characters that I'm expected to care about in spite of them having no qualities to invoke my sympathy. The man with the scythe is a self-proclaimed idiot who just loves to murder people, while the protagonist's dialogue consists entirely of begging to be murdered. Backstreet Girls is shamelessly crude and barely animated, making it one of the few anime this season to fully embrace its own stupidity. So, I guess the big joke about Grand Blue is that it's not actually an anime about scuba diving. But after that initial realization, I honestly found the rest of the episode annoying. The perpetual energetic pacing was exhausting and blatantly ignored the importance of comedic timing. The basis for every joke originate from various concepts that are inherently funny, regardless of context or build-up. Nudity, misunderstandings, repetition, these superficial comedic elements were revealed in such a straightforward manner that they never felt deserving of a laugh. Comedy is hard to judge, so at the very least I'll just say, I don't think the abrasive nature of Grand Blue suits my sense of humor. Happy Sugar Life is one of those anime that's just dark for the sake of being dark. Even the most redeeming quality of the anime, being Kana Hanazawa's voice acting, was underutilized due to her being forced to play a yandere with a stereotypically monotonous vocal range. If action-oriented historical dramas interest you, the only competitor in that genre this season is Genkou Kassenki. Sadly, a relatively solid first episode filled with a few decently animated fight scenes, along with a captivating premise, was tarnished by an unseemly and distracting filter. Usually, I find it inappropriate to even mention personal grievances regarding aesthetic choices, but I fail to see what this contributes to the anime. This is literally just porn. In the interest of getting this video out in a timely manner, I wasn't able to wait around for High Score Girl to get subbed. Based on the opening alone, the anime looks like the Takashi Kashi of video game anime, but with less attractive characters and an unappealing art style. Shoujo Kageki Revue Starlight beautifully blends action and idols together in a world where fantasy and reality are indistinguishable. In an anime that starts off as what appears to be a Love Live imitation, the first episode slowly evolves into a work that emanates vibes of shows like Foot Flappers and even Utena. Admittedly, there is quite a lot to dislike about the premiere. Lackluster character design, painfully plain backgrounds, and a fair amount of tropes. However, expectations are subverted in the last quarter of the episode, when one of those painfully plain backgrounds literally slides off the wall, unveiling what Starlight is capable of. If the rest of this series leans into the fantastical and theatrical, abandoning the mundane, its potential will truly start to shine. There's no uncensored version of Yuragi-sou no Yuuna-san, so all we can do in the meantime is stubbornly power through steamy scenes until the Blu-rays are eventually released. So, what's worth watching this summer season? Well, not a whole lot. I believe the most promising anime are Hanebado, Asobi Asobase, and Revue Starlight. Anime with strong potential are Hataraku Saibou, Banana Fish, Genkou Kassenki, and Planet With. Guilty pleasures are Isekai Maou to Shoukan Shoujo no Dorei Majutsu, Yuragi-sou no Yuuna-san, Harukana Receive, Backstreet Girls, Sunoharasou no Kanrinin, and Joshiochi. And be sure to check out continuations of existing franchises like Overlord, Attack on Titan, Free, and Tonegawa. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to keep up with my opinions on all these shows that I'm watching, consider checking out my monthly podcast, or if podcasts aren't your thing, just look forward to my next video, which I promise is coming eventually.